Ocala, Florida. Got a great show today. Do us a favor. Look, simple way to watch this show: Twitter Live, Facebook, YouTube. Take a picture with your phone or the QR code. Like us and share us. Brendan's right. We can't say it on this show enough times. That's how we grow. We provide this content. If you're interested in being a sponsor, we get return on investment. We are great at getting people.
I work for free.
Yeah,
it's free.
We do it because we love it.
Complete freaks.
It's a passion. Yeah, we are.
No, it's
we're
not.
somewhat crazy.
It's not a passion. It's an addiction, and it's a problem.
It is an addiction, and we love it. And look, we do it every day of the week. This channel's got 8 shows on here. We've got a great lineup today. Kevin Scarbinsky, Scarbo knows it's right here on this channel. John Hartwell, Coaching Solutions down in soon-to-be Fairhope, Alabama. Coach Matt Dean at Rhodes College in Memphis. And we'll be here for the Hour of Power. So crank it up, man. Get pen and paper handy. And I'm going to say, guys, as we bring in the lineup, check out that Landers Ford logo behind me. Brad Bellamy, the general manager, is waiting for your call. Ring him up on the telly, and he'll get you fixed up in a new vehicle. Kevin, big news broke yesterday for all of us Scotch-Irish Catholics and folks, Auburn and Notre Dame. I mean, that's kind of like being – remember George Carlin? You know, none of us were not in the club, but now Auburn is in the club because they're playing Notre Dame. Doug Dean has got his shillelagh out. He's doing the dance. That's a big story. Kevin, you have been putting out so much good stuff on Twitter. And it's like Jacques Doucet and you together are the Twitter kings in the South. What went on at Auburn? Wasn't surprised. I don't think anybody was fired while I slept last night. But Kevin, how you doing?
I'm good, fellas. Good morning. Yeah, even for those of us who are Polish Catholics, we were excited to see the news that Auburn is going to play for the first time Notre Dame in a home and home. We think home and home at Auburn means one game in the other team's stadium, one game in Auburn's stadium in Jordan-Hare. We got to be sure about that. We might want to check after the Baylor shift for next year. But it is great news, and it does soften the blow of moving the Baylor game to Atlanta, Auburn's home game next year, to open the 2026 season. And, you know, we give John Cohen grief when he deserves it. Well, let's give him some credit here because the way they balanced it out, and they're going to go to South Bend in 2027, but it's earlier in the year. It's in September, so the weather shouldn't be too bad, although that's always a possibility. But the 2028 game, that's back in Auburn. And, of course, 2028 now, in even-numbered years going forward, is when Auburn will play 5 SEC road games. So getting Notre Dame as your anchor home game on that schedule should sell an awful lot of season tickets for 2027. I'm sorry, 2028.
Yes, that is a powerful brand, John Hartwell and Matt Dean. You know that. Matt, you think about this. You being from Davenport, Iowa, growing up there, went to Drake and Des Moines. Big Ten football, SEC football, it's college football. But Notre Dame is, I got to say, it's the most enduring brand in sports history.
It is, and great to be on with you guys. And it was interesting with the CFP rankings this weekend. You know, I've heard a lot of interesting thoughts on Notre Dame being at 10. Now, they started off 0-2, and really from an eye test standpoint, a botched extra point prevented the A&M game going from overtime. They really had control of that football game, and some special teams plays hurt them. And then really the Miami game early on, we thought both Miami and Notre Dame were pretty elite week one, and obviously Miami's really went south. But if you look at Notre Dame's remaining 4 games, what's interesting, probably their toughest test left is at Pitt. Ironically, Pitt gets in the rankings at 24 this weekend, so there's some conspiracy theorists out there that realize that, hey, maybe we rank Pitt so Notre Dame gets another win. But I think Notre Dame's a really good football team. I think they're a top 12 football team. I think they're a playoff football team unless they stumble again. I just don't think they deserve a home game, and we'll see how things play out in terms of seedings because right before we came on, Brownie, I was talking to you about BYU and Texas Tech. A lot of these things are going to work themselves out that the committee puts in there. And I think that's a really interesting game. I'm really curious about the interim coach boost after a firing. I heard DJ Durkin this week, a couple great clips. I think Auburn defensively is one of the really, really good defensive football team. Can they put it together and surprise Vandy? How have you ever said that in my lifetime? Auburn goes and surprises Vandy, right? I think they'll play very spirited this week. I don't know, Kevin, what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I feel the same way, and we've seen that interim coach bounce, at least in the first game after and John, I know you love this euphemism, a change in leadership in the football program. We don't fire anybody anymore. We put out a press release that says we're changing leadership.
That's right.
We saw it with UAB against Memphis. Yeah. No one saw that game coming because there was such a gap between those two teams. And yet on that one afternoon here in Protective Stadium, and it wasn't like they had a full house. No. It was closer to the opposite downtown here in Birmingham. And yet UAB found a way. We've just see it time and again. I think Alabama has to be aware of that this week with LSU. Right. And Frank Wilson, we know if you rated Frank Wilson and Brian Kelly on the likability scale, you're pretty much at the top and the bottom of that scale in LSU history. So you expect those players are going to come out and they're going to play hard for Frank Wilson. And I would expect the same thing in Nashville for Auburn under DJ Durkin. So doesn't mean they're going to win the game. It's hard to fix the deep-seated problems they have on offense in 1 week. But I think they will give their best effort.
I do too. John, you talk about change of leadership, and it's a lot this year. I can't remember a year with this many firings because every time you fire, it's times 2. It's 24 right now.
Yeah, it is. And we talked a little bit yesterday, Rob. But here would be my concern if I'm, obviously I think there's a pretty good consensus, maybe not who's 1, 2, 3, 4, but what the top 4 or 5 jobs are. But beyond that, it's going to be interesting. And I don't think we're done yet. But to make a change like that, is the quality of the next man up you're going to get going to be as good as what you paid significant dollars to get rid of? And that's going to be fascinating how that plays out over the next 60 days or so with that. And I think you may see a left field candidate. Maybe I shouldn't say that. We were on the heels of election day a couple of days ago, but somebody, an unknown, emerge in 1 or 2 of these jobs because if you look purely on paper, there just aren't that many quality guys. But hey, I want to go back just real quick. Great to see you, Kevin. What you guys were saying about the interim guy, because I absolutely believe that Frank Wilson will have the LSU Tigers ready to go this week. What a lot of people don't realize, Frank, arguably, in the New Orleans area, has as good, if not better, recruiting ties as anybody there is. Was a long time high school head coach and athletic director in New Orleans, was on Orgeron's staff. That's where I got to know him in our years together at Ole Miss. And he is a motivator. He will have those guys ready to play. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised to see Ed Orgeron on the sidelines himself make a guest appearance on the sidelines for this game that could just add to the fanfare of it. And I also agree. I think the same thing with Auburn. I think there's a relief in that program now, and they'll let it fly. And, it's an audition really as well. Yeah. Nobody's talking about Frank for the permanent job at LSU. Nobody's really talking about DJ for the permanent job at Auburn. But if those guys go 3-0 down the stretch or whatever, hey, they all of a sudden become a viable candidate.
Yeah, Kevin, John said a couple of weeks ago, it was pretty funny. He said, Auburn, it's such a mess. They're one bearded lady away from a full-blown circus. Well, if you bring Ed Orgeron on the sidelines for a cameo appearance, that is the 5-legged goat and Zip the Pinhead as well. I mean, you're not going to get
there's
better.
no more entertaining circus in the SEC than LSU football.
Yeah.
And because it goes well beyond the campus. And now you've got a new president. And first he said he was taking the interim tag off athletics director Verge Osbury. And then he kind of backtracked on that yesterday. So we don't know exactly what the heck's going on there. I wouldn't be surprised if a year from now Will Wade shows back up as the basketball coach in Baton Rouge, because he was very well liked there. And what got him unemployed there is now the lay of the land in college basketball and major college sports. So Look, LSU and Ed Orgeron wants a job. He's trying to get back in the game. And he'll do it as an assistant coach, a head coach, a strength coach. It seems like he would take just about any job. And can you imagine if Frank brought him in to give a pregame speech to fire those guys up before they run out into Bryant-Denny Stadium? You could see it, and he would be good at it. And those guys would come out with their hair on fire.
Oh, I mean, you couldn't get any better than that. And then now let's look at Florida. I know I'm in Memphis. Matt and I are. The Kiffin watch is on, but I don't. Nobody knows. I mean, it's hard. What Lane Kiffin does is he gets his contract done, and he doesn't say anything, so that kind of lends to the mystery. But if Lane Kiffin doesn't go to Florida, who is your top choice? Anybody? Throw a name or two out there that would be, because it's all about, we say the right fit. Is anybody the right? You're the right fit if you win. That's the right fit.
So I heard this yesterday. I watched a little bit of Josh Pate, if you guys are familiar with his podcast.
Yeah.
And he wasn't saying who's going where, but he dropped a Pate bomb, and he said, hey, don't be surprised if Lincoln Riley isn't in the mix for certain jobs. And I don't know where that came from, and I'm not saying anyone wants Lincoln Riley in the SEC right now, but, before he took USC over, he was pretty much a quarterback savant and a great play caller. And I think those things haven't changed. I just think the USC landscape, as the UCLA landscape right now, are very difficult jobs. So I heard that yesterday, guys, and I have nothing to back that up, except I heard it on the podcast waves, and I thought it was interesting because he believes, as I kind of follow this narrative, there's going to be a couple wild cards that are going to move this cycle that we're not even thinking about right now.
Yeah. What about a fit for Lincoln Riley at Florida with that offense? I think that's interesting, but you got to have defense too.
Well, Florida, look, a lot of Florida people want Steve Spurrier, Pardue, and Lincoln Riley would fit the mold in terms of his area of expertise, what he's actually done as a head coach / play caller / pseudo offensive coordinator. He hasn't been as effective at USC as a head coach overall, but the man has chops on that side of the ball. And remember the narrative that he left Oklahoma to go to USC because he wanted no part of the SEC.
Yeah.
I don't know that was true then. I don't know how you could turn down what USC offered him and paid him.
Yeah.
The house where in the Pacific Palisades or some gorgeous location like that, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. It was one of those jobs too good to turn down. But I wonder if he's now seeing the reality that USC doesn't fit in the Big Ten. And it is at a disadvantage playing Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State and making those cross-country trips. So I wonder if he's a little more open now to coaching in the SEC.
Yeah. And John Hartwell, I'm going to throw this one too. One of our topics today, can the SEC get as many as 5 teams? Right now, 6 of the top 12 in the first rankings, for what that's worth, are there. But can this league do 5 this year?
It's going to be interesting. Can they do 5? Yeah, absolutely. Will they do 5? And, all of these things is interesting, whether it's the coaching changes, the AD changes. There are politics weaved in and out of all of this. I just don't know from a public perception, and yes, that CFP committee is supposed to be based purely on performance, but there's some subjectivity to it. Yeah. I think it's going to be hard to push the envelope beyond 5, with that. Really quickly, back to the Lincoln Riley thing, and this plays into our conversation about the CFP. When you get to making, $10 million a year versus $12 million a year versus $15 million a year, does it really move the needle? I mean, you're talking about generational wealth for, the next 2 or 3 generations for your family. These guys, the fierce competitiveness and all of these guys, don't believe for a second that one of the primary factors as to, hey, am I going to take a serious look at this job, is the path to a national championship. The differentiator to being the next Saban versus somebody who was just a really good college coach is, can you win that first, second, third national championship, which, oh, by the way, has gotten even harder in the era of NIL and transfer portal because you have a more even spread of the talent out there. So I do think that's a factor. I do think Lincoln Riley, despite the house, in Pacific Palisades overlooking the Pacific Ocean, is that going to be better? And I just throw this out there as an example. I'm not suggesting he's a candidate for this job. Is that better than overlooking Lake Martin, in the outskirts of Auburn? Who knows? But is there an easier path to have an opportunity to win a national championship?
Kevin Scarbinsky, reply to that one. That was good. That's a great take.
Yes, because if you're the Auburn coach, you will have a home overlooking Lake Martin.
Yes.
That's a
guaranteed.
And then when you are no longer the Auburn coach, at some point you will move back there to live in the area, which is one of the most amazing phenomena in college football is that former Auburn coaches almost all go back to Auburn, no matter how unceremonious their exit from that program. They do love the area, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and there are a lot of reasons to love that area. That's why the people who say Auburn's a bad job, the boosters meddle too much, do we think boosters don't meddle everywhere? Auburn gets hammered for this because it's been more public. It's been more out in the open. It's been more reported on, perhaps, by people like me, but that happens everywhere. So, Auburn, look, we know what Auburn's ceiling is. You can win a national championship at Auburn. You can play for a national championship at Auburn. You can win an SEC championship at Auburn. The problem is it's been a roller coaster. It's been all over the map, and no one's been able to sustain it really since Pat Dye. Tommy Tuberville came close, but nobody competed for championships annually, to use John Cohen's phrase of the expectation at Auburn in Sunday's statement announcing the dismissal of Hugh Freeze. They want to compete for championships annually. Well, nobody's done that since Pat Dye in the late 80s. I don't know. Is there somebody out there that can do that? We'll see. But I don't know. Lincoln Riley doesn't seem like an Auburn kind of guy. Just from what and I don't know him personally. I do know this. Looking at the playoff rankings to bring it back to this week, we know who's first and second all-time appearances among current SEC programs in the college football rankings. Obviously, Alabama's 1 and Georgia's 2. You know who's number 3? Oklahoma. Oklahoma's only a couple of weeks behind Georgia in total appearances in the college football rankings since the playoff started in 2014. So we know what Lincoln Riley, and a lot of that was under Lincoln Riley, of course, some under Bob Stoops at the end of his tenure. So we know what Lincoln Riley is capable of. I just don't see, and I don't like, the word fit has become overused, but I just don't see him fitting at Auburn.
No, it isn't. Kevin, I know I told you I'd keep you till about half past the hour, so we're running a few minutes behind, but we got some time to do this. Your podcast, you get into a lot of really good topics. Plug your podcast. It's on this channel because you do at least 2 a week, and they are true grit journalism on display, and it's great stuff.
Well, we have fun with it, and Brendan makes it all work. So we got to shout him out because it couldn't happen without him. And we'll have one later this morning about 11 o'clock, 11:15 Central Time. And this time we're going to focus more on Alabama and LSU. We'll talk a little bit about some different topics about Auburn, et cetera. And really the main topic will be, look at all the chaos going on in the SEC. 4 open jobs, 2 among Alabama's rivals at Auburn and LSU. And nobody's talking about Alabama. Alabama's what Kalen DeBoer has done to calm the waters, especially after the Florida State game to start this season. They're just going about their business, just winning football games and getting in the playoff discussion with very little fanfare, very little notoriety. Everybody's talking about Ohio State and Indiana at the top of the rankings and Texas A&M, and then Alabama's right there behind. They are just what they have done following a legend, which we know is one of the most difficult things in any college program in any sport. And it was chaos for 10 years. And you can read this in my column today on AL.com. It was chaos for 10 years at Alabama after Bear Bryant retired and then sadly passed away. Absolute chaos. Hasn't been the case. So kudos so far to Kalen DeBoer and also to Greg Browne, who immediately identified him and hired him in short order.
Yeah. Well, and the overreaction in that, even I thought it was an overreaction losing to Florida State, because you look at DeBoer's record, he's won on every level that he's been at. And, he's from South Dakota. I think it took him a little bit of time to get used to the passion of these people. By the way, if you want to understand Southern college football, last night on the color TV, since we don't have ESPN or anything like that anymore because of YouTube streaming issues, I watched Braveheart. Southern college football fans are the Scotsmen and the Irish on the other side of the field with the blue face paint. That's us. I mean, we are a little bit passionate, and no means more. Tell me more. Matt, you look at Oregon. Dave Bartu, Oregon grad, on the show on Monday's College Football Matrix, said Oregon's not really elite at anything. They're just good across the board. What's the ceiling for Oregon this year? And talking about that.
Guys, a lot of people, and I have a little knowledge, Kevin. My son's on the DPP there in the staff, so he's in all the meetings and stuff.
Matt, we lost your mic a little bit. Did you unplug?
Can you hear me now?
Mm-mm.
No.
Turn it. Oh, we can, but just turn it up. If you can turn it, let's see if I can boost you a little bit.
Is that better? I turned it up.
No, I think you unplugged your mic by chance. It's just, I think it's gone.
Yeah,
it's all right. Go ahead. I think I'll try to boost you a little bit.
So one of the things that Oregon realized coming into the year, they lost 11 people to the draft, 10 or 11. It was a program record, and they are starting 2 true freshman corners. They lost 8 starters on defense, so they weren't sure what this was going to be about. And then in the Indiana game, their quarterback, Dante Moore, who we love, didn't have a great game, and they lost the game. Yeah. And so now they're in a situation where 3 of their last 4 games are against ranked teams. They control their own destiny, and honestly, they do really well. They do good stuff on both sides of the ball. They're probably a top 15 defense, top 10 defense, and probably a top 15, top 20 offense, but they're not elite. But I will tell you, one of the things that I think Ryan Day figured out at Ohio State, last year he brought in Chip Kelly, he had Jim Knowles, and this year he brings in Matt Patricia, and that defense is elite at Ohio State. But Dan's got 2 great coordinators, Tosh Lapoy on defense and Will Steins, who I both think will probably be head coaches really soon. So I think they're going to hit their stride. I think they're getting better. They're under the radar a little bit. It would not shock me if they were able to run the table. It wouldn't. But I told my son, you lose to Iowa, essentially you're probably not going to be in the college football playoff. So your playoff starts this week, which happens in November, right? You have to beat opponents. And another thing, when they beat Penn State, they literally the one that started the Franklin slide. Game day, 110,000 people, tough environment. Penn State had Drew Aller. They were playing at a high level. Oregon finds a way to win, and Penn State falls off the map. So now they're really not getting credit for, at the time, which was a really good win. And I think that's another thing that hurt them in the initial rankings. But at the end of the day, that happens to a lot of people. You can say that about a lot of schedules because early on, we don't know how good people are until the season progresses. But Oregon's got a shot. But right now, they really thought their year they're targeting was 26, not 25. That's kind of what I hear in that building, just so you know.
Yeah. Okay. Look, we had John had the plumber's crack. He's back with us. Hey, that's a requirement. You can get all. I mean, plumbers make a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money. Got toilets overflowing. What does it take here? Hey,
my guy had on a belt today, so all is good.
Okay. Well,
it'll be one of the last jobs that AI doesn't take over, so you might as well. I'm thinking about learning how to do it. So,
hey, you get you about 15 or 20 trucks. You are the man, Kevin. Like I said, we'll let you go here in a minute because I know you got to get ready for your podcast. But I really do. I think it's a true appreciation for journalism. What you do, you're putting out so much content, and you and Brendan, the graphics, everything on there. I love the intro music.
All
I love
Kevin.
the countdown.
Kevin does his own work, Rob. Just want you to
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go.
Kevin does all his own homework.
All right. So Kevin, before you go, and it's at 11 o'clock Central today. That's 12 Eastern. What do you think right now this weekend, I know this is going out on a limb. Texas A&M goes to Missouri. That is a game. Missouri's done with the playoff chances if they don't win. But if they win, they're still in it. A&M's undefeated right now. It's a pretty cool story.
It really is. And, I had a great conversation with Trev Albert. He was at the SEC Basketball Media Days here in Birmingham. And Garth Glissman, who's the SEC Associate Commissioner for Basketball, introduced us. We had a fascinating conversation about why he loves Mike Elko and how Bucky McMillan fits in that same mold. Relatively small ego guys who work their way up from unglamorous positions, who understand hard work, who aren't about themselves first, who aren't about ego and who they coached for and all their connections. He was really taking indirect shots at Buzz Williams, the previous Texas A&M basketball coach, in this conversation. But I thought it was fascinating because I've known Bucky McMillan, as you guys know, since he was a college player at Birmingham Southern. And he is of that – he's a ball coach. And Mike Elko is a ball coach. And that's why I keep hitting that phrase with Auburn. Auburn needs a ball coach, not a poser, not someone who's trying to max his one rep max in the bench press like Brian Harsin, not a televangelist. They need a ball coach, okay? And if they get a ball coach, then we already know what the ceiling is at Auburn, and that's competing for and winning championships.
Yeah, well, and that the spitting image, I have not seen a coach that reminds me more of Pat Dye than John Summerall. I'm just saying that.
I see Pat Dye in both John Summerall and Brent Key.
Yeah. And I tell you what I'm doing tomorrow night, Kevin. I'm going to Memphis, Simmons Bank Liberty Bowl Stadium. I'm going to the Tulane Memphis game tomorrow. John Summerall, Ryan Silverfield. I just love college football, and all of us do. And Kevin, you have such a great appreciation for the Battle of the Bones, Memphis UAB. This stuff matters everywhere, and I just love what you're doing on the high school level. We love having you on every time. You bring your A game, but also you put things in the right context, man. And you're also got a podcast at 11:00, and I will be.
Yeah, I gotta go put some graphics together. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you. See you. I love it. Look, Kevin. The thing about Kevin, guys, is he has been there through the years and covered so many great stories, just like another one. True Grit journalist Gary Harris grew up in Miami, but moved to Alabama as a young lad and developed a love of college football. Sports director, WVUA, Channel 23 in Tuscaloosa. Does a great radio show right after mine, 9 a.m., 100.9, Tide 100.9. I got the app on my phone. And we were just talking about Alabama this year. Ohio State and Indiana are getting all the love. And here's Alabama just kicking ass and taking names since the Florida State loss. Gary, and you've got a passionate fan base for sure. But first off, how you doing?
Hey, good morning. Doing great.
Alabama LSU Saturday. I don't know if you heard Kevin Scarbinsky talking. What a possibility. Could you imagine if Frank Wilson brought Coach Carew for the pregame talk or a sideline appearance? We're going to have dancing bears and a bearded woman out there too. It's going to be incredible.
Yeah, I never know with LSU and what they might come up with. And I do think there's a little bit of an unknown with Frank Wilson and obviously a new play caller. So, Kane Womack said this week, the film's the film, you study it and prepare for what they've done and what, Frank Wilson did when he was a head coach at other places and, get ready to go the best you can. It's what we've talked about all year. I mean, you can't assume too much with these games in the SEC. I mean, you can't look at one team's record and the other team's record and just say, well, because one's 5-3 and the other's 7-1, that it's automatically going to be a win for the team that's 7-1. It just really doesn't work that way, y'all. And I think y'all know that. And I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. But LSU is a talented team. I mean, they were going into the preseason. Nussmeier was the Heisman candidate. They were preseason playoff pick, and they didn't have to this point the season that they would like to have. But they're a very capable football team, and because the second half went so bad against A&M, it's very easy to forget that they led that game at halftime. LSU led that game, and had it turned out a different way, Brian Kelly would still be the coach, and they'd come in here with a lot of momentum, but it didn't. And I expect Alabama to win the game, but every time you line up in the SEC, even if you're playing, Arkansas or Kentucky or whomever it is, if you're not ready to go, you don't play well, you could lose the football game. And I think Alabama understands that. Where you sit right now with the college football playoff rankings, the first edition, and where these rankings are a month from now could look completely different. So you got to be, Alabama's got to finish this stretch run if it's going to, if it's going to be where it wants to be. I mean, even if they beat LSU, Oklahoma, they had trouble with Venables last year. They had some trouble with Venables when he was at Clemson. What if you drop that game? And then what if you go into Jordan-Hare and there's an aspired Auburn team that plays over its head, and suddenly you're 9-3, and you might not even make the playoffs. So there's still work to be done for Alabama, and I think that's what DeBoer is trying to really push with his football team is you haven't done anything yet.
Yeah, well, it's so true when you look at the records of teams and when you go to the games, and we're all lucky enough to be down at sideline level or whatever, and you look at the guys, you're going, they, as Spurrier says, they give scholarships too. There are no easy outs. John Hartwell, you've seen a lot of football. You've been to games at Brigham Young. Are they as rowdy as the LSU fans on those Dr. Peppers? Or I'm sure there's somebody sneaking in a cold beer in there somewhere.
It's Diet Coke with the squeeze of lime in there. And hey,
I'm not buying it.
I'll just tell you this, Rob. I've been a part of Ole Miss LSU games, Auburn, Alabama. I've been, like you said, I've been to a bunch of places. I have never heard some of the things that I've heard said at BYU there in Provo from their student section. Yeah. It's wild. It is. It is a tough place to play, and they're all dressed in white. They stand up the whole time. I'm not sure that it's alcoholic libations or caffeine, but they're hyped up on something there, and it's a tough environment.
A lot of mountain bikes, white shirts, black pants, and clip-on ties. It's a good look. I mean, All right. So, Gary, Matt and all of us, we're talking the SEC. Can we get 5 teams in the playoffs this year? And Matt and I and everybody, we all have our opinions. What do you think? And who is the SEC team? There is a lot of loser leaves town matches still left to play.
Is that for me or Matt?
Gary, sorry about that.
Yeah, I think it could happen, possibly, particularly if the ACC only winds up getting one team in. We'll see what happens this final month of the regular season. I think there's potential. My 4 is still kind of my number, and I'll be interested in what John and Matt think. 4, I still think is the number that I have in my head. And, right now, obviously, that would be, I think, Alabama, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Georgia. But, there's an opportunity to get a 5th team in depending on what happens elsewhere. And, listen, I just said that, and I'm thinking right now, 5 looks very, very possible with the ACC and then the Big Ten scrambling to get 4 teams in. They right now, who would be 4, outside the top 2, who would be the other 2 teams from the Big Ten. So I think it could happen. I think when it all settles out, though, 4 will be the number.
All right, Matt.
Yeah, I agree with Gary. I do think if Texas can run the table and beats A&M and goes 10-2, I think that could be your 5th. Because I still think, and I agree with everything Gary said. There's some games to be played. You got to line up and play the game. But I expect 3, 4, 5, and 6, A&M, Alabama, Georgia, and Ole Miss, unless they stumble and get 2 more losses, they're in. So I think Texas is my 5th team, but they have to probably run the table in order to get that 5th spot. Which is, hey man, they've started to play better football. They've had a little magic. They got off to a great start, but I give Vanderbilt a lot of credit the way they fought back in that football game, and they were a bounce on an onside kick away from possibly pulling that upset.
Yeah, John.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I think politics does play into this a little bit on the national stage. Could you make an argument for 5? Yeah, and I agree. If Texas runs the table, they can be number 5. But I think there's going to be a whole lot of blowback if all of a sudden the SEC, you could even potentially make an argument for 6, depending on how this last month of the season plays out. But 4 are locked. I feel like 5 is a possibility. 6, you would have an uprising from the Big Ten and Big 12 folks if that were to occur.
Yeah, Gary, this Alabama football team not great at running the ball. Of course, Justice Haynes, he's at Michigan. You've got Cam Miller. You've got talent, but is it the offensive line or is it a lack of depth in the running back room or both?
It's a great question, and I don't know. I mean, to be 14th in the league and 116th nationally, and this is the worst rushing attack statistically Alabama's had since Mike Shula in 2006. So, this is a school that runs the football, and I think it's probably not practical to think that 8 games in they're going to reinvent themselves with a running game. But I do think that they've run it, as crazy as this sounds, with them being as low as they are statistically. I think they've run it enough to keep the defense honest, if that makes any sense. But to get back to your question, Rob, I think it's a combination of things. I think the offensive line at times has not gotten the push. I don't think the backs have necessarily hit the seams or maybe tried to bounce it out when they needed to stick it up in there. When they were going with Jam and Kevin Riley, those are, even though Jam's very muscular, those are still smaller type backs. Now Daniel Hill's moved into that second spot. I'd love to see them get him. He's been great in the passing game, short passes, but get him going in the run game. I think the run game can become more effective. I don't think it's going to be, obviously this is going to be Ty Simpson throwing the football as what makes this offense really, really special. But it's a great question. I can't really answer it. I thought the running game would be more effective than it has been. They've been able to overcome it, but I think it's a combination maybe between. You got to remember too, Alabama does something that we don't see very often in college football. They rotate 8 offensive linemen in during the game. Most offensive line coaches, do that old faith. It's a hand in the glove, 5. We want 5 guys, and unless there's an injury, they rotate 8 guys in. So I don't know if that's got anything to do with it. I really can't answer it, Rob. And I'm sure that if Alabama could put Ryan Grubb and those guys could figure it out, they'd be more effective in the running game, because it has been a disappointment.
Well, last year, remember, Georgia was 15th out of 16 in the SEC running the ball. They won the SEC, beat Texas twice. So it is interesting. And you look at college football right now, the team like Georgia, they play a full 60, but they've lost 10 of the last 11, or Alabama's beaten them 10 of the last 11 times that they've played. And I've got them playing in Atlanta for the SEC championship. So that's going to be crazy. John, you look at these fans in the SEC, everybody, I've never seen it like this, 1 through 16. Along the what I just asked Gary about Alabama not being able to run the ball, who in the SEC lines up and does impose their will on you and run for 250 or 300 yards a game? Remember, Texas did it last year for 288 yards against Kentucky. That was the first time we'd seen that in a long time, a month of Sundays to say.
Yeah, I don't know that in today's landscape of the SEC that you have a true 4 yards in a cloud of dust offense, either in real life or in concept. But, I know early Ahmad Hardy in Missouri ran for a lot of yardage, but it was not north and south. It was not all between the tackles. It was, utilizing speed outside some. And so that's something I don't know that you're going to see again because it's hard to recruit to sometimes as well to that style of play. Hey, Rob, I hate to throw a curveball here, but I got to ask Gary this, because everything football, and I know I'm going to get Matt's ears to perk up here. There's a pretty big game involving the Crimson Tide tomorrow night in men's hoops. Coach Nate Oates going to Madison Square Garden and playing number 5 St. John's. You talk about a big-time early matchup. Give us a little bit of your thoughts on that. I know we're deep in football season, but hoops is here upon us.
I welcome the basketball.
It's actually Saturday morning, John.
Okay.
Yeah, Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Central, Madison Square Garden against number 5 St. John's, number 15 Alabama. Huge game. Here's one thing, and I'll say it on this program because I said it on mine, and I know they work extremely hard in practice, but Matt, being a basketball coach, maybe he can help me out here. The only thing that I can't figure out with Alabama is they never seem to have a completely healthy roster. I mean, I'm thinking back over the years. I mean, they've 4 guys out to start the season. We knew that the kid from Miami, Bethea, was going to be out, but then 3 more guys that didn't dress, including Holloway and Reitzel and Bristow, the transfer power forward. So they were without 4 guys against North Dakota. Now, I hope 2 or 3 of those guys are back. But to get to the matchup, and then I'll let Matt talk about why Alabama can't seem to be healthy. Right now, I favor St. John's. John, I mean, at home in the Garden, and we know this about Rick Pitino. He will have a system to guard Alabama. He will figure out something. And Alabama played a lot of freshmen the other night, particularly so many guys sitting out. They're really talented. They can really get up and down the floor. I think Phylon could be a top 5 player in the country. I really do. He went for 22 points, 8 assists, and 3 rebounds the other night and looked effortless doing it. Bowl, the transfer power forward from Florida State, is not rebounding. I think that's an issue. I think that's one reason they'd like to get Bristow back. Alabama's a talented team, can shoot it again, and can guard better than they're going to be given credit for because they're so athletic. But right now, and I don't know much about St. John's other than the number 5, they're coached by Rick Pitino, and they're playing in Madison Square Garden. So I'm taking St. John's on Saturday morning, even though I'm pulling for Alabama.
Dino,
he's gonna have players, and I know Matt wants to weigh in here too. The other thing I would ask, hey, look across the state. Should Auburn's overtime victory over Bethune-Cookman College, should that be cause for concern amongst the War Eagle faithful, or was that just shaking off the cobwebs in Stephen Pearl's debut as a head coach?
All of the above.
I know they're glad they won, aren't they, Rob? Yeah. Can you imagine what week they had in football if they'd lost that game? Reggie Theos coached them up at Bethune-Cookman. I tell you this, for all the complaining about football officiating, they can thank Doug Shows and company for 38 free throws to 9 in that game. I can tell you that.
Yeah. As a policy, the coaches have got to stop whining about it. I mean, I know there's problems.
Yeah, I'm sick of it.
It trickles down to the players. That's like you whining in front of your children. As one of my friends said, it's bad enough when women whine, but when men whine, it's unacceptable. It's awful. Matt, jump in here. I like what Gary just said about Alabama's basketball roster because we've got the best basketball coverage as well. Gary, you really know hoops, and Matt and John, we bring in Coach John Brady. We have fun, so let's get your take, Matt.
So Gary, I'm going to give you an analogy with our team right now, and we are trying to play faster. Metrically, we're going to probably have a ton more possessions this year than we did last year. And I know Nate Oates' style is pretty open, and they get in and go. And my 2 cents worth is, I'll give you an example this year. We've tried to do that, and we've had a really good preseason camp, but we've had about 3 kids out the last week ourselves. I don't know if that's, because a lot of things freak happen on that Maple, Gary. I mean, we've had kids. I've lost kids in the 3-on-0 drill before with no contact because of that Maple. So I just think in the sport of basketball, and I've said this for years, you look at basketball now, the load management, the highest level in the NBA versus when in the 80s and 90s when I loved the NBA game and I was a big Michael Jordan fan and a Chicago Bulls fan, and Michael never missed a game unless he was hurt. And now, one of the things I've said for years in the NBA game that can help it, let's take a 48-minute game and make it a 40-minute game like college, and you do that over an 82-game schedule, you're actually reducing the season schedule by almost 16 games from a math standpoint. But they don't want to do that because it's all about numbers. It's all about points and records and things like that, unfortunately. But I will tell you this, Gary, this time of year, I think it's more prevalent because you're coming off, your fall camp, which also includes some stuff with your strength coach. And you get, those bursts when you're trying to go from defense to offense really quickly. We've had a couple groin injuries ourselves, and we're not playing at the pace of Alabama. I promise you that, my friend. But it's definitely something that I think when you play at a higher pace, I think you risk more. That's just my 2 cents. My 2 cents.
Makes a lot of sense.
It does make sense. And I think, look, Florida lost to Arizona Tuesday night. It's early. But, everybody, God, when you're defending national champions, you're getting looked at under the microscope. I think John has into the witness protection program. Hopefully he'll be back with us. But great. Looking, Gary, and Alabama's team this year, they're not getting the national attention. It's all going back to that Florida State loss. And I think that's to the detriment of other schools outside the SEC. But it isn't a dominant Alabama defense like some of Saban's defenses. But are you seeing that across the landscape, not just in the SEC, but in college football? Because where are the second and third teamers? You've got some depth, but it used to be about 1 through 44 and then 45 to 66, 67 to 85. Now it's kind of 1 through 35 or 40 even in some cases.
I think you said something too defensively. Alabama is not a dominant defense. And I heard an NFL analyst, and I can't remember the team, but he was describing an NFL team, but it applies to Alabama. He was saying they're not a dominant defense, but they're takeaway defense.
Yeah.
And takeaway defenses in the modern game can really be effective because they get the offenses extra possessions, and with the way we score points in the modern game, that's a big thing. So I think Alabama gives up some plays.
Yeah.
They make some plays, but, they're not. And, and you say we don't see dominant defense anymore. Then you look up and you look at the stats that Ohio State's put on the board. Unbelievable. Under 6 points a game, 200-something yards of total offense. I think they've given up 13 explosive plays. So there is dominant defense being played, but it's rare. So I think it starts with that because I think Alabama, people have a vision of Alabama over the last 15 to 20 years of dominant defense and run game, being able to run the football even when they had quarterbacks that could throw it. And this team doesn't do that. So I think they're fine. I mean, I think they're number 4 in the playoff rankings. So, with a loss, they're the only team with a loss in the top 4. Maybe they're a little under the radar, but I think people see that they're not a dominant team, that they're a 7-1 team. They come off an incredible stretch of 5 games in 5 weeks in the SEC, 4 against ranked opponents, and they won every one of them.
Yeah.
And I think they're getting credit for that. But people see that, a play here or there, they lose to Georgia. A play here or there, they lose to Vanderbilt. A play here or there, they lose to Missouri. And a play here or there, they could have lost to South Carolina on the road. So I think there's pause. I think Alabama's – so I'm not trying to go back at you, Rob, but I think they're getting plenty of credit based on the team that I see every week. For that team to be 7-1 and number 4 in the playoff rankings, I think is excellent considering they just haven't gone out and dominated people, And when in the past we saw Alabama, even in the conference, beat the stew out of people, and that's not happening this year. So we'll see what they do down the stretch.
I mean, under Saban, his teams were so dominant, it was like watching a boa constrictor eat, I mean, just painful to watch, or a Gaboon viper. But Gary, Alabama, this team has a lot of talent. That's the second or third best roster in the country, so they don't lack that. But I think we all got to say about Ty Simpson, coach's son from Martin Westview. He's got a little brother. Is Alabama recruiting his younger brother, the quarterback there at?
Yeah, I don't know if they've offered him because what is he, freshman, sophomore, something like that? He's young, I think, but I'm sure they're looking at him.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure they are.
But other schools are as well. But now get to Ty Simpson before I have to go.
Yeah.
I thought he would be fine at quarterback. I mean, I knew he had matured. I knew he had taken over a leadership role. I do remember what he did coming in the South Florida game a couple of years ago. But I never dreamed that he would play to the level that he has. And I think if anybody tells you that they thought that, I'm not sure they're being honest with you. I mean, there was, never started a game. Yeah. And here he is now 8 weeks in, I would say, on most lists, either the front runner or the second pick for the Heisman, and has been phenomenal. Because if you look at this team, particularly as we talked about with the inability to consistently run the ball, had you had average to below average quarterback play, this is what, a 4-4 team, 5-3, 3-5. I mean, let's just be honest. He's elevated this team to the point where they're at. So he's been phenomenal.
You know what? My greatest takeaway from him was in the Florida State game. Things were just not going well at all. He was out there just hustling and busting his ass. And I said, that carries over to Sunday. It carries over to practice that next week. And you could just see him, and he is the leader. I believe he's the leader on that team. And I think that speaks volumes. But I'd also love it to hear your thoughts next time. I know you got to go. What you think about Ryan Grubb? What you've learned from him. But he is a special coach. And
yeah, I can tell you real quick. I got a minute. It's been exceptional. This is the way it was supposed to go last year. You know, I mean, he was supposed to be the offense coordinator last year, and now you've got Grubb in his spot. Nick Sheridan is terrific working with the quarterbacks, man. He's outstanding, particularly with his experience from last year. And then DeBoer kind of oversees it all. So I think from a symmetry standpoint, chemistry, all those words to describe everybody being on the same page, this offensive staff right now, because of Ryan Grubb, it's working the way it was designed to work, and they're really good.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Gary Harris, thank you so much. You catch him, Channel 23, Tide 100.9, the best. See you next week.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Matt, you look around in college football, again, if you've got the great coordinators, Ryan Grubb's name, ironically, I'm not hearing him being mentioned as a head coaching candidate, but I'm sort of shocked he's not. John Hartwell, are you hearing Ryan Grubb's name being brought up as a head coaching candidate? Because there's certainly a lot of openings, and I do think there's going to be more openings. I'm curious if the Vegas odds makers are coming up with coaching firing odds on DraftKings or anything like that. But
yeah, you know, I'm sure with his success, with their success on that side of the ball, he's got to be getting some looks. I tell you, the other name, and I have heard this name associated a little bit with Florida. I'd be interested to see what Brendan had to say. Is Glenn Schumann, the DC at Georgia, who has had a ton of success. Obviously, he worked alongside Dan Lanning for a while. You know, Dan is obviously, as Matt well knows, transitioned well from being a coordinator to a head coach. So, again, going back to what I said on the top of the show, I think you know, they're not enough can't miss. And I use that term a little bit loosely because there's never a 100% sure deal. But there are not enough head coaches who are deemed rising stars to fill all these openings there are. And keep in mind that with the marquee openings there are right now, when those get filled, whoever takes those jobs, there are other head coaching jobs. So like you said, there's going to be a coaching carousel, maybe like none other that we've seen, at least in recent history, here over the next 60 days.
Yeah. And Matt, you think about this, the number of coaches that were coordinators that become head coaches. Dan Lanning, Exhibit A. And then Glenn Schumann, Dave Bartu talked about it. He hadn't had a top 25 defense at Georgia. That's Kirby Smart in the last 15 years. Dave has him ranked as the best defensive coordinator in the country. So I don't know what you take away from that.
So I'm going to defer to John on this question in a little bit I'm posing, but when I make a hire for football, or when I did make a hire for football, I love defensive head coaches, and my theory is this. I think those guys command so much presence in the locker room. And I'm not saying they're a bunch of meatheads, but I think from a motivational and inspirational and just a pure, can we control the locker room narrative? I just think defensive guys do a great job historically of that. And a lot of times you get these young play callers that become really good offensive coordinators. And we always say like they're going to be the next great head coach, but then they get awkward. Like I'll give you an example in Miami, Florida. I mean, watching McDaniels sometimes at press conference, if I'm a Dolphins fan, I'm like, what the heck is going on, man? Yeah. I think there's something I love defensive guys. And, I'm biased because my son works for one, but I think defensive guys have a chance to get things done in the locker room. And I think that's where a lot of times it starts. Yeah. It starts in that locker room.
Yeah.
And well, just to speak, John, it was the Tom Fornelli story. Are you talking about?
Yeah.
I love the betting odds on this stuff. It's my favorite. Lane Kiffin now is a negative 150. Okay, whatever. You know what? I don't know. I think Glenn Schumann is a higher right now. I think he's cheap. His buyout's $2 million. Give him a $6 million deal. He got about $4 million left over for an OC. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I think you want to beat Georgia. Maybe he's got the cheat codes. you know, I don't know. I don't know. I think right now we are just throwing darts.
Yeah, and it's going to be that way.
Because I think in the end it's going to be Kiffin to Miami Dolphins at the head coach position, because I think they'll probably hire. I heard they're taking a run at him. You know, we won't, whatever comes out, just like this college football season, it won't be probably what anyone thought it would be.
Yeah.
I just wonder if Jimmy Sexton has his ringer turned off on his phone. Could you imagine how many texts that he gets and phone calls? I wonder how many different phone numbers.
His assistant gets a ton, though.
He walks around. I've seen him at work, man. And when I worked there for 9 years, he was on the floor below me. It's like this. It's unreal. But guys, we're about run out of time. But this is, you talk about the defensive coaches in the locker room, and then the intellectual prowess of Ed Orgeron as well. The things that he says a lot of things that make sense. He may talk funny to some people.
My point exactly.
Yeah, I love the guy. I think anyone that knows Ed Orgeron will tell you one thing about him. He is a loyal friend, and the people that know him love him. John, would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, that will be one of the chapters in my book one day. I delivered his severance check to him when he got let go at Ole Miss. So and still talk to him periodically. Yeah, good.
I'd love to get him on this show. I mean, oh my God, he's wound up. I mean, that's good, but I mean, we need it for college football, guys. Thank y'all both so much, John Hartwell, coaching search solutions, college sports solutions, and Matt Dean, the Rhodes Links. We'll see y'all next week.
Good night, John Boy.
Thank y'all.
Good night, everyone.
Hey, let me say something, man. Over my left shoulder, you see it there, Landers Ford. And man, the anxiety, it ain't the doing in life that's so bad. Henry B. always told me it's the dreading. Just call Brad Bellamy, the general manager at Landers Ford. They've got all of the Broncos. They are so good looking. Ladies love the Robin Egg Blue with the red retro on the front. Buy 4 select tires, get a $100 rebate. They've got the Ford Power Promise. Hey, folks, Black Friday savings, man. It's going to be here 3 weeks from tomorrow. It's coming close, and $500 off for SEC Sidelines audience members. Don't stress out. Worry is a wasted effort. Just go out there and talk to Brad Bellamy. Their service department will pick you up and bring you back and forth to your home or your office, round-trip transportation. And remember, they are at Poplar and Houston Levee, where Germantown and Collierville meet. If you didn't buy your last vehicle from Landers, you paid too much. Just be honest. You did. Okay. Right down the street from our great friends at Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company. Brendan's got the Feral Boar, the Wild Hog Sow boots. They're so good looking. He's 6'4" in those boots. He's 6'7". Hewlett & Dunn on Instagram. That's right, 6'9", Fletch. Boot of the week. And I was out there Monday. I like to go out there and take them lunch. I tell you what, Charles Hall and his wife Laura have built a culture out there. You feel so happy when you're out there. Barber, Filson, Pendleton, Schaefer, SDS. The Duckhead collections, man, this Wrangler Filson collaboration on this new jacket they've got, they're selling them out fast.
Look, they sold out of my boots already. They're out of stock.
Yeah, they cannot keep those.
I wear them all day long.
They are
almost every day.
Yeah, and your next pair of boots, I'm trying to think what I'm going to get you. I might get you some ostrich or something.
I have to go to some events this coming up that I have to dress nice for in the next couple of months. Maybe we get Hewlett & Dunn, give me some red carpet outfit.
Might get you a blazer. I need a genteel blazer.
Maybe I could be outfitted by Hewlett & Dunn for this event.
Absolutely.
I have like 5 events. I have to be like
and it will be HewlettandDunn.com, and they will deliver anywhere.
I love their stuff.
I do too. I love it. And remember, also get in the best shape of your life. Rumble Boxing Gym, Union and McLean, Midtown Memphis. How you fight is how you live. 45-minute classes with weights and punching bags. You will get in great shape. And Hemp for Pros, the gummies, Lights Out, Energy, Chill. These are great. Use code SIDELINES at checkout. They'll take 25% off. Hey, Brendan, I'm going to talk to them.
Dave Bartu's business, by the way, everyone. So if you like Dave Bartu and you think it's all great, give him a call.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Great people. Hey, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We'll see y'all today on this channel, and tonight and tomorrow and every day. Thanks for watching.